Hi guys, welcome to the Ayurveda for Life. My name is Nadya Andreeva. I'm your host, and today we have an amazing guest, Pamela Quinn. Pamela is an Ayurvedic teacher, yoga instructor, author, social entrepreneur, and a gifted speaker. Pamela is also an author of Elemental Cleanse book, and she is the founder of Elemental Studio that leads cleanses, yoga classes, and workshops. She has two yoga centers in Cincinnati, Ohio, and she's a mother of two and a really bad dog owner. Okay, what does that mean?
Yeah, we'll find out in a minute if my beautiful golden retriever decides to join us.
Okay. Well, Pamela, thank you so much for being with us. And I'm really excited to talk about Ayurveda cleansing and your book. Tell
Thank
us,
you.
I'm sure some readers might know you, but those who don't know your story, tell us your story because your story is so fascinating.
Oh
What
my
brought you to
gosh.
Ayurveda?
Thank you. Well, this journey for me began more than 10 years ago. It was actually 2002. And for no reason that's discernible, I went from being perfectly, completely healthy one day to waking up the next day in debilitating pain, back pain, muscle spasm, to the point that, you're kind of army crawling across the room to soak in a tub. And I ended up going down a year-long process of, physical therapy, limited movement, lots of, prescription drugs to deal with the pain and to manage sleeping. And, just that classical Western treatment of back pain. Ultimately in the end, they weren't really sure what was wrong with me, but I made that, appointment with the local doctor who's kind of famous in Cincinnati for treating all the baseball players and football players. So I really had, high hopes that he would give me at least a reason why I was in so much pain. And, at that appointment, he literally looked me straight in the eye and told me there was nothing wrong with me and I was just going to have to live with pain. Um, and that was devastating. My children were very small at the time. I could barely unload the dishwasher. I was taking my kids to the swimming pool just so I could hold them. So it was devastating news. And I think, really out of desperation, I went to the bookstore and I started looking for ways to manage pain. And I came across a meditation book by Deepak Chopra, which, every book on the shelf by meditation practically is written by Deepak Chopra. And I started meditating and I took a workshop and I ended up at the Chopra Center for Wellbeing for a week. And there they introduced me to Ayurveda and living an Ayurvedic lifestyle and also yoga. So when I came home, I just dove into it. It became a passion for me. And within 5 months, I was, we'll say 95% pain free.
How are you doing now?
I'm doing great. To be perfectly honest, I lived for about 8 years still managing what was left of that 5% of pain. And then it was maybe a couple years ago, about 2 years ago, I was at an ashram and we were just having this great experience and my back just flowered open. And I've been really just completely pain free to the point where you don't even think about a body part anymore.
Yeah.
So it's been great. Yeah, like you don't think about your finger until it hurts, right? So yeah, it's been just an amazing journey for me. And, I was so profoundly affected and moved by this yogic lifestyle that, of course, I went on and got my own education and opened my healing centers in Cincinnati and ultimately, wrote the book, The Elemental Cleanse, to be able to share Ayurveda and yoga and meditation more to that mind that's never really even heard of this kind of lifestyle before.
Yeah. So, what are some of the transformative habits that you started implementing into your life when you started learning about Ayurveda? Something that other people can also start learning.
Yeah, and I think that's the beautiful thing about Ayurveda is it's not complicated, it's not hard, it's just a weird word, right? So simple things people can do, starting today that are going to bring them immediately to balance within 3 to 7 days, are just to stabilize their routines. So if a person would go to bed between 10 and 11 p.m. every single night instead of staying up late, if a person would get up in the morning before the sun comes up and at least by 7 a.m. in the morning. So that right there is going to actually facilitate weight loss. It's going to de-stress the body. It's going to give you a boost to your immune system. Other things you can do to stabilize the digestion, which also boosts your immunity and enhances your quality of life, would be to eat 3 square meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Cooked foods are easier to digest than uncooked foods. So if you're going through a tough time, it's better to cook your foods. Things like that really save you time ultimately, and they don't take a lot of time. I'm an avid advocate for yoga. I think it's the most technologically advanced practice you can do. You hit all your pain points in an hour and 15 minutes and leave with a great message. So of course I'm an advocate for yoga, but if a person feels really intimidated by yoga and can't find an appropriate new to yoga class to try in their community, I suggest just going for a daily walk in nature each day. So yeah, you get out there 30 minutes, you don't have to kill yourself, stop along the way, hug a tree, come home. You've cleansed your mind and you've soothed your spirit. You've nourished your soul. And it's really probably one of the healthiest things you can do yourself, given that, heart disease is our #1 killer as well. So just getting out there, moving the body a little bit. Meditation, of course. A lot of people want to start a meditation practice and they make it really, really complicated and overwhelming. And it doesn't have to be. Meditation can start with you getting your morning cup of tea, sitting next to a window and just letting your eyes kind of loosely gaze out at the trees and at the clouds and just let your mind, even wander and just notice the wandering of the minds. So meditation, I think if anybody's watching TV or picking up magazines or following the stars even, you can see that, meditation and yoga right now, it's really trending, and it's because people are starting to understand how dynamically powerful it is to reduce your stress, reverse the aging process, and boost immunity overall.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you're right. It doesn't have to be difficult. You can start with small things.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you can get more complicated, of course.
Exactly. Then you can go to an ashram.
Yeah, then you can run off to the mountaintop.
That's true. Well, let's talk a little bit, since you specialize mostly in cleansing, in detoxifying both somebody's diet and life. Let's talk about that. Why do you think it's necessary for people in our society to do an occasional detox?
Well, the recommendation, if you're living a yogic lifestyle, is that you would do a full 28-day cleansing period once a year. And you would probably do it in the fall or in the spring when the energies of the earth are kind of naturally supporting an organic flush of the system. So this beautiful energy of movement comes in and it releases all the accumulated toxicity of the winter or even of the summer when our digestive fire is actually a little diminished. So that would be once a year. And that's a full cleanse. And it's kind of a great time to really, look at your life in general, to look at your life going out and beyond a year, 2 years, 5 years, maybe even creating like a business plan for yourself, not just for your health physically, but for your emotional health and for, the future. What do you want the future to look like? So the 28 days is just this total perfect body flush. The reason you need 28 days is because in Ayurveda, we look at the body system as having seven separate tissue systems, and it takes approximately 5 days to flush each system, which feeds the next system. So even with my cleanse, it's a 28-day cleanse. cleanse because that's kind of catchy. But at the end of the cleanse, it's expected you're going to continue to eat for your dosha. You're going to continue to eat for your body type. You're going to continue to eat healthy. And what that looks like is you get that 35-day period to completely reset the system. The other thing people are highly recommended to do is once a month, especially coinciding with the moon cycle or with the full moon, to do just a 1 to 3 day flush of the system. And that's, again, it's going to boost your immune system. It's going to flush out the accumulated toxicity stored in the fat. And it's going to give you an energetic high as well. So a lot of the thought process that we're stuck with, maybe ideas, beliefs, problems we've been having in our life, as the energy through the body lifts up, the energy in the mind's going to lift up too.
Yeah, of course. Those two are super connected. So let me I'm reading the mind of people listening to the interview.
Yay.
And the question that most people, or I guess something most people are thinking about is, 28 days, there's no way.
Yeah.
It's too long. It's impossible. It's going to take too much time. So how do you break it down to make it not as scary?
Well, I assume that you are going into a cleansing period because you probably have accumulated some less favorable habits. Mm-hmm. So really, it's a slow tour through what we call the dosha system. So the first week of the cleanse is, oh my gosh, I'm not in the best state right now. I need to get organized. I need to clean up my pantry. I need to clean up my schedule. I need to find the yoga classes I want to go to, and I need to reestablish routines so that I can fit in a 10-minute meditation each day. And I need to start looking at some of my habits that are interfering with my digestive fire, that are causing accumulation of toxicity in the system.
Have to talk about those in a minute.
Yeah, so we'll get into habits. So we start to cleanse of our habits, and that means you're going to have to get into your mind, because we're attached to things like caffeine and sugars and alcohols and processed foods, and we're attached to our schedules, our routines, and our running crazy. So week 1 is your week where you're like, oh, holy crud, everything is out of balance in my life. And then week 2, we get a little more serious about food, and we move more towards a vegetarian diet for the purposes of cleansing. We're getting deeper into those habits and maybe getting into even our addictive nature, or our nature of having a deep-seated habit and having to confront some of that. We're looking at how we're showing up for others. So what egoic qualities that I naturally possess have gotten out of hand and are causing me, drama and karma in my life. And then what qualities of me that are beautiful soul qualities have diminished. So we do a lot of emotional exercises around that as well. Then we'll move into week 3. Week 3 is a great cleansing week. It's all vegetarian. We're eating bitter and astringent and uplifting foods. And so you would imagine, too, if you have not come into this knowing anything about being a vegetarian as well, you need the 3 weeks to reassess how you cook and how you go to the grocery store, and to learn new recipes and things like that. So anyway, we get into week 3, and that's a beautiful week where we start, intending for the future, manifesting, looking at what our life's going to look like. The food by that point feels pretty easy to you, and most people have released their attachment to like caffeines and alcohols, maybe still struggling with the sugars a little bit. And then when we go into week 4, we're in really a fast. It's an Ayurvedic fast. It's appropriate for all doshas, and it does include food. So the beautiful thing about the cleanse is, you're not hungry, you're eating food. And I can't stress that enough, because a big component of cleansing is understanding what is food and what is not food. Mm-hmm. So it's really this educational process. And this is food, this is not food. And then finally, at the end of it, we feel great. We've lost weight. Our skin is all cleared up and prana's flowing. And we learn how to continue to eat for our body types so that we can maintain balance as we go into the future.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So I guess when you break it down into 4 7-day periods, it sounds a lot easier than 28 days.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm going to be perfectly honest with everybody, and I'm not going to say it's easy. what you are being asked to do is spend at least an hour a day on self-care. So I'm asking you to find in our busy life an hour where you can, meditate and pray and do your own personal work and move your physical body, every single day. And I don't think people fully appreciate how out of balance we get when we take no time for self-care. So it is not easy in that, an hour in a 24-hour period, the way we live, is a lot of time. It's not easy for a lot of people to reset their routines. They're in the habits of staying up late or sleeping in late, or maybe they just have a life of chaos. And sometimes we create chaos in our life because we're not willing to be alone or to face our own demons or dragons, whatever you want to call it. And, that is not easy. Yeah. And then learning to cook, if you don't know how to cook, if you don't know how to shop, none of that is easy, but it's really a foundation for how well you are going to experience life, especially as we age.
Yeah, so basically it's changing at the root base of how you take care of yourself.
Yes, it's getting to root cause of suffering. And I think that's what the cleanse does best, is by week 2, it will be very, very apparent in your life where your grossest imbalance in your life is. So let's say by week 2, I cannot figure out how to even get 10 minutes for myself a day. Maybe it's time for me to really sit back and look at, the job I have, yeah, and the excessive hours I work and the demands my family and children place on me for taking care of a house or cooking or running the kids everywhere. And that's really hard. So now, I'm sitting in a job maybe I don't love, and it's causing me too much stress. And I'm going to need to intend in the future, over the next 3, 6, maybe a year, I'm going to have to intend to get out of this job somehow into something that's more in aligned with my purpose, with my dharma. So those are transformative changes that happen with the class.
Yeah, they're huge. Yeah. So I can feel like it in some people, they will be causing anxiety in terms of, I don't want to face it. I just want a quick pill that will kind of make me suddenly feel better.
Exactly. And the thing is, gosh, I wish there were a quick fix. In the book, I give you all the tricks I know that are quick, but they're not the kind of tricks that, we really, really want. It's so much easier to pop a pill and not be depressed. It's so much easier to drink a glass of wine after you come home from work and unwind. It's so much easier to busy yourself with chaos and running rather than face either your loneliness or your lack of love in a marriage or whatever it is. It's, Yogi Bhajan, he said that the spiritual path and the non-spiritual path are both equally hard. It's just they're hard in different ways.
Yeah.
And having lived this way, for the last 10, 12 years, I've suffered on the other extreme. And now I suffer through my own spirituality, but the suffering is a joy too, because it's not that bad to get up early in the morning and spend an hour on myself. Is it hard? Yeah, sometimes it's hard because I'm really, really busy, but I find it creates time in my life and it keeps me vibrant and young. And, I find I can always get more done than everybody else. And, the creative juices are always flowing. So, people are worth the investment. They just have to be given a reason to make the investment. And so people will say 28 days, I'm going to do this with my mom or with my sister or with a group. And, they start to feel the results. And that's what it's about. It's results oriented. So I want you to feel the changes in your own body and mind, and then you get totally hooked on the lifestyle.
Beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about habits that might be actually ruining somebody's digestion. So maybe somebody is not necessarily ready to do the full 28-day cleanse, but they're just looking to change some of their habits. So what are some habits that they can look at?
Okay, I'll talk about the habits that I see. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching. I work with groups here, in Cincinnati and whatnot. This is what I see people doing the most frequently. Mm-hmm. As a society, we have been sold that having one drink a day is healthy for your heart. Heart disease is our number one killer. And studies have shown that a man, not a woman, but a man having one drink a day, it actually is beneficial to heart disease. What we're not considering, though, is the detrimental effects on our liver and our digestive system. So every time you have a serving of alcohol, you take your liver offline to process what it believes to be poison out of the system. So let's say my liver's offline for an hour a day processing my relaxing glass of wine, that adds up to 365 hours a year where you've not processed your enzymes, your hormones, or your fat. So, that daily glass of wine adds up, to 5 or 10 pounds of weight a year. And that really is detrimental to the system. Not to mention alcohol is a depressant. So it creates a life where, 2-3 months down the road of your daily glass of wine, the world just looks a little duller, but it's so slow and sneaky, you don't even know it's happening to you, So I would say giving up alcohol, not like I can never have a glass of wine, that's not what Ayurveda is about, but this daily dose is killing people. It really is. The other thing detrimental is caffeine. Depending on your dosha, one serving of coffee a day is okay. But, I even have my big mug of tea here, but, this is not a serving of coffee. If it were about this big, it would be a serving. And I think if you're drinking consciously, you can start to feel the reaction in the body. It spikes your blood sugar level, and it also releases a lot of stress hormones into the system. So caffeine, that's huge. Interesting, I'm not seeing a lot of people drinking soda pop so much anymore. I'm not seeing so many people pouring, a glass of milk and just drinking, milk the way it's processed in America down the way they used to. I'm having a lot more people have no resistance at all to giving up red meat, being beef and pork. And those are two meat sources that I do strongly recommend people to give up, only because they are the meat sources that are hardest to digest. And keep in mind, anytime your digestion is having to work super hard to digest your food, it's not able to do the other things that it's intended to do. It has to focus its energies there, and that creates a sluggish digestive system, and that means sluggish immunity too. Another thing I see people consistently doing, and we already talked about it, is staying up late. So between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., this beautiful energy, we call it pitta, this fiery energy comes over our body and our mind, and we enter into this hypermetabolic period where we're actually fighting off the bacteria, the viruses, all the things we've come into contact with. And in our minds, we're processing the stress of the day. So if a person's staying up late consistently, they may be losing an hour or even 2 hours a night where their body is supposed to be in a restful state, healing. So people, if they just fix that, it's amazing what happens if I could just get them to go to bed. So those are quick things that I would say are interfering, that people might start to think about giving up. And breakfast skipping, that's another huge one, where you don't start the day with anything and then it just totally shuts down your digestive system.
Well, I think it might seem like quick things, but in reality, those are pretty huge, and changing those can take a really long time.
Well, you know what? If you can't limit your alcohol, giving up alcohol takes no time. And if you can't limit it, if you're finding you're constantly overindulging, or you're having a lot of attachment to it, that's something to think about. And nobody wants to hear this. I'm like the worst bearer of bad news, but it's definitely something to think about. If every Friday night even you find yourself out having to have a few glasses of wine, even because of the people you hang around with, you got to think about what that's doing to you long term. And then, caffeine, that doesn't take any time to give up. And I'm allowing you a cup a day. So that's
Well, I think
totally
I think what I
reasonable.
mean, it's more about people facing their addictions and
Yeah.
what they're relying on. So it's kind of taking on a very honest view of what's happening in their life, and
Yeah.
then kind of starting to work with that non-attachment to particular foods, because when certain people think of particular foods, basically what happens is like, I can't imagine my life without cheese, or I can't imagine my life without wine. But
Yeah.
in reality, at least what I found through my practice with people is that if there's at least one particular food or drink that you can't imagine your life without,
Yeah.
that's a relationship that's the most worth looking into, because it is either an addiction or food sensitivity.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, totally. I agree with that. So the things you're most resistant to as well in the mind are maybe the places where the ego is, duking it out the hardest.
Yeah.
And what I love about yoga and Ayurveda is it's not fast. It took me 6 or 7 years to give up meat. And it took me, I still have my morning cup of coffee. And, a lot of other things, you just have to give it time
Yeah.
and just consistently do your practice, and then learning to love yourself as you go through the process of just allowing the habits to just gently go away. You do get to a point where you're walking through the meat section at the grocery store and it smells bad to you. And it'll just happen one day where you're like, you know what, this smells bad, and it doesn't feel good in my body. I consciously feel this sluggish in my digestive system and I don't want it anymore.
Yeah.
Or you have that second cup of coffee and you're like, wow, this does make me jittery and I feel a little scattered now and I'm not communicating well anymore. So to give people the grace to slowly unfold, but to give them the means by which to kickstart. The cleanse I teach is so effective for weight loss, for diseases of an inflammatory nature. I work with a lot of people who are going through divorce, or their children are going off to college, or maybe they're struggling in a relationship. I work with a lot of people, they have fibromyalgia or osteoporosis, or maybe they're going through chemotherapy. They've been to the doctor says they're pre-diabetic and they're scared. And those are the people who really want a dramatic change in their life, and giving them an opportunity to just dive into yoga, meditation, and Ayurveda like I did is really what I'm about through the cleansing process. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk a little bit about calories, because
Sure.
I think that's on the mind of a lot of people. And a lot of
Yeah.
people, when they think about doing a cleanse, it's purely for weight loss purposes. They
Yeah.
don't care about changing their habits. They might have not heard from their doctor that they're in a bad state, but they do want to lose weight.
Yeah.
And the general understanding in the society is eat less, exercise more. So the equation of negative calories helps you
Right.
to lose weight. What does Ayurveda say about that?
Well, in Ayurveda, we don't use the C word, as I call it. Here's the funny thing about calories, I think. And everybody has these friends. I know you do. So everyone has the friend who's this teeny, teeny little thing. And when you hug her, you can feel the bones under her skin. And she can eat like a linebacker. And she eats that way every day. And she never gains a pound. And she hates to exercise. Yet she doesn't gain a pound. And she's consuming more calories than her height and weight scientifically say she should, right? And then you have the other person who is just a bigger person. They're softer, they're rounder, they have more fat on their body, they have more muscle on their body. They probably struggled with their weight since they were little. And I have a girlfriend, she's so funny. She says to me, like, if she sees a plate of cookies or something, she says, if I even walk by that plate of cookies, I'm going to wear it home on my, I'll say butt, but she doesn't say butt. Oh, I'm so sorry. Thought I turned that off. so she's on the other side of it where she's starving herself practically. She's eating all small meals, she's eating salads, she's eating vegetables, and yet she's not losing any weight. And she's exercising. So that doesn't make sense. And then you have a lot of the women I work with, they've hit that menopause stage. Mm-hmm. And, they'll get up, they'll eat their yogurt and banana for breakfast, they'll eat their lunch of a salad and grilled chicken, and then a very reasonable dinner. They're limiting themselves to 1,500 calories a day. They're working out, and yet they can't get that to budge. So I say, what is a calorie? Is it calories in and calories out? No, it's how strong is your digestive fire. Look at a teenager. A teenager can eat and eat and eat and eat and eat, and it's because they have so much vital life force. They have so much prana, so much agni, and then we all hit 30 and it's over, right? So I don't believe in calories. I think counting calories is, I don't know, like a control freak mechanism that we've somehow been fed just by this crazy culture. We live in this technological world now that has nothing to do with how we really physically react. Not to mention each one of us has a different story, right? Yeah.
So it's more about improving your digestion.
Yeah, let's get I look at the belly as a bonfire. Mm-hmm. So in my belly is a bonfire, and I can throw in, if it's really strong, I can throw wet wood on it and it's going to burn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or if it's diminished, I can throw the nicest wood on it and it's not going to be able to digest it. And you see that happen all the time. A kid has a huge bonfire. He's throwing wet wood in it all the time. I've got a 16-year-old son. I don't even want to know what he eats when he's not around me. And he's perfectly healthy. And then I have a lot of clients who are doing all the right stuff, and they're eating all the right things, and their digestive fire is completely diminished, and they are gaining weight, and they're not digesting their food, and they're suffering from, poor skin, poor quality life, and quite honestly, it's leading to depression as well. So how do we use Ayurveda, food, and herbs to stoke the digestive fire?
Wonderful. I like that. It's a very interesting way to think about it, and I think hopefully it's going to inspire people to start looking into improving their digestion and respecting their agni, respecting that fire that feeds both their energy and the glow in their skin and their metabolism, which is responsible for their weight. So, Pamela, if somebody wants to learn more about the cleanse that you're doing or your book, where can they find you?
Well, my website is elementalom.com, so they can go to elementalom.com. I do have a very active blog, and there's tons of information and even recipes on it. You can also find my book either through my own website or it's on amazon.com. And here's my plug. There's my book. Yay. So they can buy it there. If the best way to cleanse is obviously with me in person, because I'm here as your coach. Mm-hmm. Second best way is I have an e-course, and it's all been professionally filmed, and there's a community forum, there's recipe sharing, and you still have access to me. It's really wonderful. And then the third best way is the book, I'll be honest with you, because you're doing it by yourself. So if you do get the book, I suggest you do it with a friend, or maybe even start a book club out of it. And you can still always reach out to me at Pamela@elementalom.com, and I'm happy to answer questions. You can find me on Facebook. It's that yoga tribe. So we're small, we're intimate, and we're really into, serving our students as much as we possibly can. So I guess that's the best places to find me.
Good. That's very helpful. Well, thank you so much for being with us. Guys, make sure to subscribe to Banyan Botanicals channel so you can watch all other Ayurveda for Life interviews. And we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.